Welcome to the Cedar Rapids Linn County Solid Waste Agency Fiscal Year 2024 Operations and Capital Budget Review. The budget process typically begins in the month of August each year and extends into November. Staff prepares the detail contained within the budget based on several factors, such as historic average, market analysis, and projections. Upon staff's completion, the document is presented to the agency's Finance Committee for a more in-depth review of the budget. This review was done yesterday, November 14th, with action taken by the committee to recommend to the Board of Directors that the budget be placed on file for public review, with a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, December 20th, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. If the board adopts the FY24 budget on December 20th, notification of the budget will be sent to all member and associate members of the Solid Waste Agency. The agency's budgets comprises of four components. Number 1, operating and non-operating revenues. This consists mostly of charges for services by residents and businesses located in Linn County who use any of the agency's facilities located at the Site 2 landfill, resource recovery, or household hazardous waste center, or the compost site in downtown Cedar Rapids. In addition, the agency generates revenue from state grants, the methane gas engine, and interest from the cash reserves invested. 2. Operating expenses are defined as costs associated in operating the daily business of the agency. Examples would be salaries and wages, fuel, equipment repairs, grounds maintenance, engineering, and utilities. 3rd, capital expenditures are described as assets used in conducting business at the agency. These typically are large-scale dollar purchases with an expected useful life depending on the nature of the asset. One example would be a landfill compactor with an expected useful life of 7 years. 4. Fund balances or cash reserves are the funds used to make current or future purchases without the use of external financing. These funds can be restricted for certain uses only, but typically are unrestricted, meaning funds can be used interchangeably if needed in order to fund a particular project or acquisition. There are currently 7 cash reserve funds established by the agency. Operations, closure, post-closure, capital equipment replacement, capital improvements, Phase 5 landfill cell development, Site 1 redevelopment, and future development. All but one of the 7 funds are unrestricted. The closure, post-closure fund is the only fund deemed restricted. This slide presents fees across Iowa for tipping and material recovery and transfer pricing in 2022. As you'll see in the next slide, with the rate increases the agency is proposing for FY24, we will still be in line with or below pricing of other agencies across the state. The FY24 budget pricing structure effective July 1st, 2023 is as follows. Standard landfill tip fee increases by $3 per ton to $45 per ton with a $22 minimum charge. Special wastes tip fee varies by material. Each increases by $3 per ton with a 1-ton minimum charge. Yard and wood waste tip fees increases by $2 per ton to $28 per ton with a $10 minimum charge. Commercial finished material increases by $2 a ton to $28 a ton. Waste tires remains $3 per tire. Bulk loads of more than 8 tires are charged a bulk rate of $300 per ton. Appliances remains $10 per unit. TVs and computer monitors remain $15 per unit with a bulk rate of $500 per ton. Commercial hazardous wastes increased by 7%. Various rates apply depending on the material. Flat rates for cars, vans, SUVs, and trucks are increasing by $2 per vehicle to $12 per car and $22 per truck or full-sized van. We are also adding a 3rd category for SUVs and minivans that were previously charged the same rate as cars. The FY24 rate for SUVs and minivans will be $15 per vehicle. Items the agency will continue to accept at no charge are as follows. Scrap metal, residential household hazardous materials, residential commingled recyclables, residential fluorescent tubes, cardboard, waste motor oil with a 20-gallon maximum per visit, batteries, and medical sharps. Items and activities for no charge at the Cedar Rapids downtown facility are finished compost for Linn County residents. Quantities are unlimited as long as supplies last. glass delivered from the city of Cedar Rapids for its residential curbside pickup program, no charge admission to use the Mount Trashmore Trails and Overlook. In FY23, we implemented a community grant program that will assist communities with diversion efforts. This program will be funded at $200,000 in FY24 as well. Landfill tonnage continues to trend down from derecho tonnages. However, we are still expecting tonnage to be up by 10,000 tons over FY23. Compost tonnage remains steady. This chart of landfill tonnage over the past 5 years shows a gradual increase of solid waste being accepted at Site 2 landfill. Due to the August 2020 derecho, tonnages in FY21 was almost double that of our average tonnage. Tonnage is still up slightly in FY23, with final derecho repairs wrapping up and currently estimated to reach 220,000 tons. Most derecho repairs should be wrapped up. FY24 tonnage is estimated at 217,000 tons. In FY22, 242,528 tons were landfilled. The waste stream is broken down into two segments. Commercial and industrial wastes represented 76%, and residential wastes amount to 24% of the total. Of the 217,000 landfill tons projected for FY24, the agency will need 131,204 tons to adequately fund landfill operations and administration. 23,285 tons will be needed to fund other programs, such as recycling efforts, household hazardous waste disposal, public education, media advertising, and comprehensive planning. The remaining 64,109 tons will be distributed to the restricted and unrestricted cash reserves for future use. The summary page found on page 1 of your packet indicates that total revenues are projected to be at $13.1 million in FY24 from $11.4 million in FY23, or an increase of $1.8 million. Total expenditures are estimated at $17.1 million in FY24 from $14.9 million in FY23, or an increase of $2.1 million. For FY24, the agency will transfer approximately $600,000 to reserves. This revenue pie chart indicates landfill user fees is the main source of revenue for the agency, amounting to 71% of the total. The remaining 29% comes from various other sources as illustrated in this chart. On page 2 of your budget packet, total revenue next year is estimated to be $13.1 million, or an increase of $1.8 million from FY23's budget of $11.4 million. Landfill tonnage has been forecasted at 217,000 tons for FY24, compared to 207,000 tons for FY23. Tipping fee rates will increase for most categories by $2 to $3 per ton. Interest income from the investment portfolio is averaging 2.5% for current year, with the most recent investment receiving a 4.47% rate. FY23 was budgeted at only 0.1%, but we are budgeting FY24 at 2.5%. Total operating expenses next year is projected to be $17.7 million. Of the $17.7 million budgeted to be spent, 27.3% will be used for capital expenditures, 23.3% for employee payroll and benefits, 20.7% for depreciation, 14.7% for engineering, recycling disposal services, operating the gas engine, property insurance, media advertising, and educating the public, 8.9% for purchasing fuel, equipment repairs, and maintaining all buildings and grounds, 4.8% for closure, post-closure, and the final 0.3% will be used for all other miscellaneous expenses, including administrative costs, public and employee relations, and bad debt write-off. Total personal services expenses for FY24 is budgeted at $4,123,000, or an increase of $259,000 from the FY23 budget of $3,864,000. Employee headcount will be at 37 full-time equivalent in FY24. The Recreation Trails Coordinator position is not included in this headcount. Cost of living adjustments for all staff are budgeted at 3%, with additional step increases and merit increases for most office staff. Group insurance rates are budgeted at an increase of 19% to match the calendar year 2023 posted rates. The purchased services category for FY24 will have a total budget of $2,604,000, a decrease of $56,000 from the FY23 budget of $2,660,000. Major factors in the $56,000 decrease are a decrease in spending to research alternative technologies of solid waste disposal, but increases in media advertising, engineering services, landfill gas to energy, operating costs, and other miscellaneous expenses, including contracted wood grinding, technical services, website, cloud services, and hauling services. Total supplies and materials expenses budgeted for FY24 is $1,574,000, an increase of $362,000 from the FY23 budget of $1,212,000. The main drivers in the increase are fuel prices, buildings and grounds maintenance, and repairs and maintenance to vehicles. Total other expenses for FY24 is budgeted at $906,000, a decrease of $150,000 from the FY23 budget of $1,056,000. Based on current and future estimates of total landfill tonnage, current permitted landfill airspace will reach maximum capacity during spring months of 2027, bringing the Phase 5B landfill cell online in the fall of 2026 will provide added landfill airspace for solid waste disposal. Total capital expenditures for FY24 are estimated at $4.8 million, replacing one of the landfill compactors for $1 million and the wood grinder at compost for $1.2 million are the largest capital expenses expected to occur next fiscal year. These capital purchases and improvement projects will adhere to the normal public bidding processes and procedures, with follow-up review to the board for authorization to move ahead with what's intended. Total capital outlay, depreciation, and non-operating expenses total $8.5 million. The 5-year capital expenditure projection currently stands at $19 million, with the largest share of the capital expenses of $5.7 million slated for FY26. Upon completion of any remaining capital projects in FY26, there will be no capital improvement projects through 2028, other than heavy equipment replacements. Total fund balance will increase approximately $614,000 from $39,419,000 on July 1st, 2023 to $40,033,000 on June 30th, 2024. All funds are unrestricted except for one fund, meaning staff can transfer funds from one fund to another based on the importance of financing short-term projects internally through cash reserves rather than having to borrow the money. The one fund that is not unrestricted is the Closure and Post-Closure Fund. This fund, which has the largest fund balance, is mandated and monitored by the Iowa Department of Natural Resources, Chapter 67 of the State Code. This fund is needed to close a permitted landfill and maintain it for a minimum 30 years after its closing date is established. Current estimate of the Closure Post-Closure Fund is $21.8 million, with the remaining 6 unrestricted funds collectively amounting to $18.3 million on June 30th, 2024. This pie chart depicts the restricted Closure Post-Closure Fund representing 54% of the agency's total fund balance. The remaining 46% of the fund balance is divided amongst the 6 unrestricted funds. Total operating revenues and operating expenses are expected to increase in fiscal year 24. Total estimated capital equipment acquisitions and capital construction projects of $4.8 million will have little impact on the agency's cash reserves. Total revenues less expenses and capital expenditures will result in an increase of cash reserves amounting to $600,000. Finance Committee recommends the board place the FY24 operating and capital budgets on file for public review. Staff recommends a motion from the board to place the fiscal year 24 operating and capital budgets on file for public review and to set a public hearing date of Tuesday, December 20th, 2022 at 1:30 p.m. Thank you for your time and attention. Staff is available now to answer any questions or comments you may have.